and how you can restore losses like you're talking about there, because essentially a fire can destroy buildings, it can destroy sanctuaries, whatever you call those things that they keeping all that salmon in. They can destroy them. How are you able to restore your business straight away when that happens? Because I can imagine the impact of 40,000 4 kilo or 20,000 4 kilo,
52,000 4 kilo fish.
Wow.
Now I just made a mistake with my broadcast, so I've got to play it again so the people that have just joined us, Jason, they'll see it. So we'll have a look at our number one risk. Here it happened in the middle of the Don Tricasto Channel. So 52,000 4 kilogram fish have escaped from a salmon pen in the Don Tricasto Channel for Tassal salmon. So these are ready to go to market. They're ready to go, shipped around the world, to be processed and shipped around the world as part of their stock. So this is like a farmer losing all his sheep, or a cattle agricultural cattle farmer losing, some of their cattle. It's serious stuff. So a pen floating in the middle of a big river has caught fire. Now, I don't know how that happens, but it's our role as security risk assessors to try and prevent that sort of thing happening. Now, Jason, you look at this across a range of industries in relation to watching, not just hospitality, but everyone is affected by fire similarly, aren't they?
Oh yeah, look, fire, like I say, fire is one of those things that's extremely hard to restore the business. So as much as you can do from a preventative perspective to, try and stop fires happening, the more that you can do there, the better off you will be.
Yeah, and it must be a real pain for emergency services, because they would have got a call saying to them, look, we've got a fire in a salmon pen in the Don Tricasto Channel. Now, imagine the person taking the call.
If I'm an entrepreneurial fireman, I'm saying, yeah, I'll take that job. Thank you. I'll go out there and try and hook a few for myself.
Well, you can cook dinner while you were there, but Don Tricasto Channel, if you've got to spell that out in the, the NATO alphabet, it's going to take a bit of an effort. You're going to have to go D, apostrophe, E-N-T, R-E-C-A-S-T-E-A-U. You'd have to be half French to be able to do it. So it's a very big ask. So that happened in Tasmania this week. Now, if I was looking at that as a risk assessor, there is a lot of things that I'd be doing. Now, CCTV is only going to alert me afterwards. So there's a range of other things that I'd have to be looking at. And I'd be speaking with the local fire brigade and various consultants. I'd be benchmarking this, how they do it in Canada. Similar climate, that sort of thing. So that's one of the things I like to do if I've got a really difficult one like that. It's floating in the middle of the river and it caught fire. So I'm guessing this is not for real, but I'm guessing that it may have been part of the automatic feeding system. It's a lot of fish, 52,000 in one pen. But that's a major loss, and the insurer is going to look at that quite negatively and look at the pricing of their insurance of those pens. So these pens are very similar to a farm's paddock. That's what they are. But of course, they're part of the aquaculture industry. A little aside note, that's it's so big in Tasmania, the aquaculture industry, that 75% of the nationally recognised qualifications issued in aquaculture are issued in Tasmania. Now that's shows you the size of the industry. They don't want, ecological disasters. I don't think that will be. They'll be caught before they do any damage. But they, don't want that sort of thing happening. So that's happened this week. And it's something to keep in mind. I was personally involved when I was in my accommodation. There was a fire a couple of paddocks away from me, and that happened in Tasmania this week as well. Now, today, the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division have come out and they've issued a policy and an email about the use of security badges. Now, what's happened is they've noticed around the place that people in the security industry are using security badges, and they've sent out an email to all the security firms and investigation firms in Victoria, and like myself, the people who have a security business in Victoria, and they've told them anyone using those badges could possibly be committing an offence. Now, you might think that's laughable. There's just some person who's got a cowboy fantasy and they're using badges, but it tells you what the penalties are there for it. Now, just before I go into that, let's have a look at how much a penalty unit is if you are caught with these and you're convicted. So it's $165.22 for a penalty unit in Victoria if you're flashing a security badge pretending to be a police officer. That's what they're doing with them, okay? So that's the amount of the fine per unit, $165.22. So let's have a look at how many penalty units you could possibly... 120 penalty units for an individual, that's a maximum. So if you calculate that, you're just under $20,000 that the Victoria Police could fine you if you get the top of the range awarded to you by a magistrate against you. You're up for $20,000 for carrying a $60 security badge off the internet. Now, it's 600 penalty units if you are a security firm. So if you're Wilson Security and 3 of your staff are running around flashing security badges, pretending to be police officers, then the LRD aren't going to go, oh, well, that's just individuals. You're letting that happen. You're missing a process, a policy, a procedure in relation to what your staff can do and how they represent themselves. So we're going to fine you, Wilsons, this is just hypothetical, I'm not saying they were, 600 penalty units, which is $99,132 for carrying that badge. Now, they do this in New South Wales too, don't they, Jason?
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, this coming out of Victoria, and that is if Victorian security industry doesn't have a bad brand reputation at this very, very moment, to think that anyone thinks that it's appropriate they get around with badges trying to represent themselves as police. It just seems to be strange, but just another one of those things that contribute to those, you know, what the authority of what people think of the authority of security when they're doing stupid things like this. Yeah. It makes it difficult for everyone else. I don't think that they understand that their actions when they do these types of things doesn't just affect their own personal brand, but also more broadly affects the brand of the whole security industry. That's something the Victorian security industry can do without at the moment.
My word, it is, and it's good to see the LRD actually making an email threat about it, which means they're aware of it. But for 20 years, I've been saying, don't do it, right? And people laugh at me, say, oh, what's wrong? What's the harm with a $30 security badge off the internet? But let's have a look at the video.
Some mothers do have them, Mike.
My word, they do. So stay. Do not ever be tempted to do it. I was in a shop once with my wife. We were there shopping. We were the only two people in the shop with a young 16-year-old shop assistant. And a lady came into that shop, and they were little glass ornaments and decorative things that, people are interested in. And this lady came into this shop, she just reached out her right arm and wiped out the top shelf for about 5 meters, smashed everything and put it on the floor. And I was standing there thinking, I've got a private investigator license in my pocket. I wonder if I use that, will it do anything? That I thought, no. So I just got to put her outside the shop and lock the door. The little 16-year-old shop assistant was terrified. That's two of us, mate. I've got to turn mine off. But look, people, this is a license to do what you're doing. Jason has a 2A security license. He has a security license for New South Wales. This is a security trainer's license and a private investigator's license for Victoria. That's all they are. They don't look like badges. They don't mean that you're a policeman, a soldier, or a tax officer, or any of the people who do carry badges. Actually, tax officers do carry badges, and that badge gives them authority to get into your bank accounts with any bank that you bank with. So keep that in mind. Do not have one of those badges. Jason, one of the things that came up this week, I had a client contact me. It was a security risk assessment issue in New South Wales, and he was upset about the presentation of the 2A licensed consultant that came in. So in regards to when we go out and do a security risk assessment, how do you present yourself and how do you dress when you go out, mate?
Well, I guess, Mike, when you're looking at doing work such as security risk assessments, is there is a degree of integrity that gets attached to that particular role, the advice that you're giving, the and that type of thing. So on that basis, and that I think that all should start in the way in which you represent yourself. I was only training some security guards last night, and I was thinking that, if you're going and giving people instructions, you're giving them directions, and you turn up to work looking like crap, how do you think that they're going to respond to those types of things? Now, if I'm going to turn up and give people security advice and advice about how to improve their business, but yet I can't even take the necessary energy to make sure that I present myself in a professional way, then what do you think the likelihood of those people accepting that advice is going to be?
That's right.
So yeah, look, I think that they've got every right to be disappointed if they've got a security consultant turning up, all right, talking about the integrity of their business, the security integrity of their business, yet their own personal integrity, the way in which a person is dressed also represents a person's personal integrity as well.
My word. We had a case, it came to mind with me after I got that question. There was a loss adjuster in Tasmania, and it was a scoliosis matter, and it was the stone cutting where they get the similar to asbestos breathing dust disease. And the man had put in a claim, and he was going to die very soon. He was going to die within 6 months. And the loss adjuster had to interview the workplace about his work and what he did and all that sort of thing. This was just not an argument, but it had to be, the paperwork had to be done. And the firm that did it were a country bush, stone cutting firm. And when the loss adjuster went there, he dressed down, he wore jeans, he wore a shirt, and he made, 2 or 3 visits. They're lovely people, very nice people, very helpful, very cooperative. But, they just wouldn't fill in the paperwork. They wouldn't complete what they had to complete to help this man. He was going to die very soon, and it was a large claim, and his family were relying on it. And so this was quite a serious matter. So the loss adjuster, very cleverly, what he did, normally he just wears a suit because he's doing, loss adjusting around the city. He put his suit on and he went back down to that quarry, and he walked in and he said to him, if you don't help me out here and if we don't complete this and I'm on your side, right, then this is what the people are going to look like, the regulators, when they come in. And they shut down your business because it's too unsafe for you to continue working with your staff. We've got to show that you've got the process, policies, procedures in place, and that you're following and that you're using, appropriate equipment now, and you've got the exhaust fans, whatever. So then they got the idea, just by the way he was dressed that last time, even though he was doing the right thing before. So This is one that's come up this week. It's all happening this week. This one's in New South Wales. So we always rely on the Daily Mail for a headline that's over the top. So this is what they said, Jason. The New South Wales quarantine system is in crisis. There's people escaping, and 169 security guards have been sacked from the hotel system. And I think they say later on in it, there's only 820 security guards in New South Wales involved in that quarantine now, and the police are saying 1,200 are required. But Jason, do you think that the quarantine system's in trouble down there, or is this just...
well, it is. It is if 169 security guards can't see 4 overseas arrivals leave where they're supposed to be. I don't know if there's any synergy with the amount of security guards and the amount of people that have fled. But if 169 security guards can't supervise 4 people, there is a bit of a problem. But yeah, look, I think there is a bit of a problem, and that I see out there at the moment in the security industry a degree of fatigue amongst security guards. I think they're getting worked pretty hard. You've got to remember that in a lot of security has played a huge role in the enforcement of the COVID sanctions that have been introduced and imposed upon business, and their workloads have increased substantially. So, you know, with that, I think that there probably is a degree of fatigue out there, and we all know what that does to the continuity of supervision. When it comes to 24/7 supervision of quarantine hotels, it can play a big part. But once again, I also look at it from a leadership perspective as well. And I think that that's a risk that needs to be considered by the owners and the operators and the managers of these security companies, and understand that there probably needs to be some more intrusive supervision about how security guards are working, albeit whether they be subcontractors or employees, because essentially you cannot, if you're the company that has been contracted, whatever your contractual obligations are, you can't then go and delegate that on a subcontractor. So look, I think that a lot of these things are contributing to security brand damage. But by the same token as well, I think that we shouldn't underestimate the degree of fatigue I would expect that the security industry are now starting to feel as a result of being the sheriffs without the badges, of course, without the badges. The sheriffs who have been required to supervise the 2020 compliance environment and the COVID sanctions that they're required to enforce. So yeah, look, I just think once again it's something that needs to be addressed at leadership level, and understand that, you know, sticking someone on a 24-hour post, having their liberty taken away from them 7 days a week for $23 an hour or $22 an hour or whatever they happen to be getting, and expecting them to be on, 100% on the job all the time is crazy. So I can see how these holes exist.
Yeah, I can see that as an evolving issue. And from my experience as an employer, there will be people that they won't turn up. That you organise them, then they just let you down. They don't even let you know they're coming. So they'd be sacked. I think if you took 169 people, you'd say 50 of them just didn't turn up at some stage. They didn't do anything wrong. They just never got there to do anything wrong. So in terms of that, there'll be people that agreed to do it, and then they just didn't have the wherewithal to, go at 12 o'clock at night and be there till 10 o'clock the next day or whatever. So that's across health. It's across a whole range of industries. It's not just security. So I do think Daily Mail, just being Daily Mail, they'll just be a little bit alarmist about these things. They're saying that 1,200 guards may be needed, and that backs up what you said. You give people a break, you give them their lunchtime, you let them go to the toilet. You've got to cover all that sort of thing. And, I don't think these are precious people, but, they've still got to eat. They've still got to do, their daily activities. But the interesting one, they actually named the security guards, the security firms that don't do the quarantine have been removed from it. Now, I've got no information on it. It's just what the Daily Mail says. For all I know, they made it all up. But it's there if anybody wants to see that. They can replay this session and just see it. It's there, but it's in the Daily Mail. It's free information. But these are the things that we've got to look at when you're doing the security risk assessment for that. It's having the people on the ground at the time, and like Jason said, it's very hard to cover all that off, but it can be done. And I'm sure there are organisations out there doing it, but that doesn't sell newspapers, and you don't get a headline if everything's going plan and everything's going well. I reiterate what I said for last week from my experience with the airport system. The security in Brisbane Airport last week when we were leaving were great, but it was the police handling it when we came back in.
Yes. Look, quarantine hotels, Mike, have got to be the most scrutinised facilities at the moment by the media, by the government, and all those separate agencies and that are involved in one way or another. The health system, etc. So on that basis, to expect that a person who has been inducted or trained in a more traditional security role back prior to COVID-19 to supervise a gate or supervise it, they're going to be fit and proper to be able to cut loose into a hotel, into a quarantine hotel, is crazy. So it's important. And if we know that the risk is there, then we need to the spirit of risk management is reducing risk as much as is reasonably practicable. If you want no risk, don't accept the contract, don't be involved, don't do the job, don't trade. All right. But if you're prepared to accept the risk, then you need to take steps in order to minimise that risk. So the things that I, as an expert witness, should liability issues or litigation occur as a result of this, the things that I'm saying is, what did you do about preparing those security guards to assume those posts? What was your induction program? What were your training program? What facilities did you have in place in that to respond to fatigue? Because these are you got to remember, these are 24/7 operations. What did you do? What did you do about responding to fatigue? What did you do about preparing your guys for the risk that someone actually might try and leave the hotel?
And an experienced risk assessor who's done it in the health industry where hospitals are 24/7 operations, they're familiar with this, and it is done, but not on that scale in every hospital. But the quarantine, it's a unique set of circumstances. And like you say, you'll go through all those things and cover off on them. And that's part, if they can show that not just that they've got the policy, process, procedure, training, that sort of thing in place, but they actually implemented it, that really helps them and stands up. Now, that brings up another one that's come up this week, not in security, but in hospitality. So a chef has broken his knee after he suffered slipping on a Gold Coast surf club wet floor, and he wants $572,000 in compensation. So this has been quantified. That's what he wants. So this is going to be a common law claim. It's gone past statutory if they've quantified it at that stage. And what Jason was just talking about there is, what were your processes in place to prevent this sort of thing happening? That's what Jason's going to be looking at here at this surf club, for example. So he's going to say, what was the policy on cleaning of wet floors? What signs had to go up? What warnings were in place? What training and induction was given to the staff? Where was this chef trained? What is the chef's qualifications and experience? If this chef was trained in McDonald's and that was a limit of his experience, it's different than a chef that worked in several other hospitality organisations around the country. So this one we'll keep you posted as much as we can. Usually they sign confidentiality agreements and nobody ever knows what happened because both parties come together and agree on amount. But $572,000, if he's hurt his knee and he can't lift pots of hot water and be mobile in a restaurant, that's not a lot of money. So he might be an older chef, or I'm guessing they're saying he. It's not a she. They're saying he. So I'm saying I'm guessing he might be an older person because that's not a lot of money, and what a chef could possibly earn for the rest of the 30 years, 40 years of their working life, depending on their age. So that's an interesting one. You don't see a lot of these hit the press. It sounds like a lot of money, but if you look at it over time, he's got to have rehab, he's got to have legal representation, and he might even have to have amendments made to his house or his car, that sort of thing. So it goes very quickly. So it's something that we'll keep an eye on. But that will be what they call in insurance investigation a common law claim, and there might be, a cleaning service involved in it as well, who didn't clean the area or mop it when he fell. Who knows? That would, come down to the time of day, that sort of thing. But an interesting one to watch.
Jason, look, the method of just with that, Mike, is that the method I examine matters of this kind is, was it foreseeable that a person could slip on a wet floor in a kitchen of licensed premises? And I would think everyone would probably say, that's probably, that probably could occur. Now, if you've got nothing to respond to that, it's not going to cut it in any judiciary in Australia that you had nothing in place to prevent that from happening. So you need to be mindful of that. People need to really start amping up the way in which they manage risk in their business by preparing a risk register and by taking steps that, as much as is reasonably practicable, those risks are reduced.
I actually, I got a hiding in court once. I was made to feel really tiny. I was in the witness box, and they told me at the entrance to this building that it had a non-slip application applied to it. And so I'm in the witness box, and I'm only giving evidence in chief. I'm not even under cross-examination, and I'm going, and rah, this training, rah, this consultant did this, and the floor had a non-slip application at X32, whatever it was, 2-pack, something or other, applied to it. And the magistrate just beside me, she coughed, and I looked up at her. She said, "Mr. Evans, I can assure you, after 42 years of sitting on this bench, there is no such thing as a non-slip surface." And I went I went from 110 kilos down to about 3 kilos.
Yeah.
And I was very careful. I got put in my place. She said, "In the future, Mr. Evans, you will refer to it as an aid in traction."
Yeah.
So that's what I got.
Well, the thing this business is going to get measured on is what they have in place. Was it reasonable in the circumstances? Was it reasonable in circumstances to prevent it from happening in the first place? It's not the fact that the injury happens. The spirit of regulation is not the fact that people get injured in the workplace. The spirit of liability is not the fact that people get injured in a workplace or anywhere it may be. Is that what have you done about preventing it from happening in the first place? And how many of my expert reports I'm examining evidence, and there is nothing in place to prevent a slip and fall in the kitchen of a restaurant or licensed premises. Well, that's just crazy in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very foreseeable. There's different ways they can approach it with drains and matting and all sorts of things. And we are not the first country in the world or state in the world to have that risk. And you can benchmark it against what other places have done. And sometimes they just get too hung up on other things. It's just part of it. It's monitoring and ensuring they've got the right advice. So, Jason, just before we go, mate, I just want to have a look at a few job opportunities that have come up in risk management this week. You'll smile about this one because the risks are enormous, but it's Timber Hine Timber, want a risk and assurance manager. So this is in Queensland, I believe, this one. So if you can imagine, this is from harvesting the timber, growing the timber, right through to racking it up and drying it off and delivering it off to Bunnings. So it's a massive, big operation. So you're looking at, prevention of injuries from people that are planting the saplings. You're looking at prevention of injuries from people that are going and using a thylodime in the growing trees to get the rings out to see what the growth record is. And you'll learn what a thylodime is because that's what you find out when you have a nasty accident.
I imagine this guy is going to be this guy or girl is going to be a particular popular person around the lumberjacks in the lunchroom.
It's just like the mining process person. They're the most unpopular one there, but they're enforcing that process policy
modern day
everywhere. And you might there's lifting equipment for this and that. And my experience as an investigator is the forestry industry was It was some of the biggest investigations I ever did, and most memorable because someone took a shortcut. The policy process procedure was there, but someone thought, oh, I'll just do this, it'll be quicker. And that ended in a very serious injury. So that's one that's a great opportunity. I'd relish that one. It's outdoors, it's across industries, it's retail, it's warehousing, it's transport. It's a whole lot of stuff. And they've got a little video on it. And if you're looking, you want a job in security risk management, you're qualified, get on Seek and just type in HYNE Timber. I really like that one. This one's in Canberra. It's a government department. Now, if you type in Paxis into Seek and have a look at it, you're going to get your hands really dirty and messy in governance, compliance in a government department. I really like this. So it's only a very short-term contract one, but I tell you what, you'll fill up 2 months of your life with some really interesting work in it. It's something that's available now in Canberra. And it's a really good read, that job. If you have a read of it, it's the textbook of what you got to do in governance and compliance within a government department being demanded for a 2-month position. They've got to pay for it. But I'll tell you what, if you're just in between jobs at the moment, that one will look great on your resume. Securitas want a campus security contract manager in Canberra. Now, I'm going to get them on this program. Jason and I will have a chat to them one day, but there is a security industry association called TERSEC. Now, TERSEC are the Security Industry Association for university campuses in Australia. Now, you might think that's ridiculous. Why would you need a security industry association for university campuses in Australia? Well, the university industry in Australia is Australia's third biggest industry. So behind mining and tourism, it's universities. Now, that's been held back by COVID this year. It will come back. It will come back even bigger than ever. All the stuff you're reading about Daily Mail type end of the world headlines about universities, don't believe it. This is a campus security contract manager in Canberra, and you're going to be responsible for the safety of the overseas students and the professors and the teachers and the ladies and gentlemen that work there. So it's a great little permanent job. It's on Seek, and it's for Securitas. It's one of the biggest security companies in the world. So certainly it's something to have a look at and be aware of. And I've got one last one. This is Serco. It's an intelligence manager down at Broadmeadows in Victoria. Again, you can see that one on Seek. A really interesting job. The way they're advertising these jobs today, they've got little videos, little explainer videos about who they are and what they do. Keep in mind, when you apply for these jobs now, robots are checking your application. They're reading the application. So you want to have the right words in your application, not what you want to put in, but what they want to hear so you can get to the interview stage. Now, if you don't know how to do that, well, you read what Serco say there and you put those words, cut and paste a few of those words back into it. That's going to get the robot's attention. But if you don't know how to do that, go and join on Facebook this Facebook group where we've got now 3 years of job vacancies where you can do your research in relation to investigation, security risk management, governance and compliance, and look at the wording they use in those ads and find some terms and stuff in there and liberally sprinkle those through your job application. And that will get you up to the top of the job applicant list, along with your certificate for and security risk analysis and your diploma of security risk management. So that's just a little tip on where to go for there. So you've had a busy week, Jason. You've been running around, mate. Is it building up for Christmas or are you slowing down?
No, look, things are looking quite good as far as my business goes. I'm coming home with a wet sail, so to speak, as far as the calendar year goes. Of relevance to the people that are watching today, just something that I have been hearing in recent times, which is going to be a big contributor to security risks throughout the whole country, is that I had heard that the police are currently concerned about, and you would think, why would they be concerned about this? But there is obviously a legacy for this type of thing existing, is that there is a shortage of cocaine and methamphetamine in Australia at the moment. And normally what happens is when there is shortage in supply, the prices go up, we've got a diminishing economy, and police are commencing to consult about what influence that they think that that's going to have on crime, because there would be an expectation that if the prices of drugs are going up and if the economy is diminishing, that the only way in which people are going to be able to fund their habits is going to be this increase in crime. So I think it's something that all risk managers should be trying to monitor at the moment as far as crime trends go. Have discussions with your local police to see if that trend is in fact accurate in your areas that your companies are. But I think it might be a big driver as far as crime goes. So I guess that's one of the legacies of shutting down your borders. It appears perhaps drugs of this kind and that we're getting into the country a hell of a lot easier than what we were perhaps implying. But, one of the legacies of a shortage of drugs is normally a higher crime rates. Keep a lookout for it, and definitely make it a consideration in your current risk management plans.
Thanks, Jason. One of the things I noticed on Facebook, they're selling designer dogs that don't exist, and a lot of our investigators are getting work now where they have to go and check that the dog at that puppy farm or wherever it is, or that breeder, is actually a real dog. So that's one of the it's the soft scams. The softer they are and the simpler they are, they will hit the individuals, but the similar ones will hit businesses too. If you're looking at building up to Christmas and you're seeing something that you just got to have, if I was looking for drones or something, wow, that one's only $300 and it's too good to be true. It's time to be extra alert for that sort of thing. So the places without security risk management, CCTV, appropriate sort of access control, that sort of thing, the softer the touch, the more at risk they are in a time that the police are warning about. So they've got to be creative and move on to the next one. And, if this scam is exposed here, there, and businesses get, informed about it through social media or whatever, they've got to move on to the next one. So they're very rapidly evolving and changing all the time, even though they've worked them to death. But it is something, seasonal factors such as Christmas and the temptation to save a few bucks by, something that comes through the email or is on a website that looks legitimate is really worth a double check now, because of what you said, Jason. And interesting times for us. It'll keep us employed for a few more years.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure, mate.
Thanks, mate. I look forward to seeing you next week. I'm just going to go out and play our, on our way out, our security risk management promotional video for Certificate 4 in Risk Analysis. I'll speak to you at the end of it, Jason. Thanks, mate.
Good one, Mike. Thank you.
Oops. Going to play it in a second.